Welcome back to Money Matters. I'm Emily Johnson and joined as always by David Kroll. We're here to discuss all things economy, all things financial, in theory, no politics. But David is chomping at the bit to discuss a few other interesting items that are slightly on the political front that do have an economic impact if we keep pushing them. So have at it.
Biggest chess pieces on the political table that I've seen I think in my lifetime. I mean, they're all up for grabs. The healthcare, as we've been saying, enormous impact. In the industrialized world, our healthcare delivery system is the most expensive. For Americans who are economically advantaged, for higher-end Americans, our healthcare system is arguably the best healthcare system in the world. But it is also taken as a whole the most expensive delivery system. Pharmaceuticals, which are an enormous component of the healthcare pie, are the most expensive here of anywhere. So basically, Pfizer sells a little pink pill in the United States for $17 a pill, sells it in the UK for $11 a pill, sells it in Germany for $7 a pill. In other words, everybody pays less than we do. This is one of the issues in the very complex lobbying that takes place around a healthcare negotiation. This is one of the very most tender and very most complex issues. Everybody agrees now that we need universal health care. Nobody agrees on what the best mechanism for achieving it is. At the base of it, the Republicans have got their teeth into the meat of the issue, which is we must have universal health care, but lower premiums and lower costs. And that's at the core of the amend or replace Obamacare argument. Is this doesn't work because it's too costly. We've got to find the way to achieve the same or a similar thing that is less costly.
Well, and one of the reasons it's too
costly,
that's
really the core of it.
Because of insurance companies getting out. By lack of competition, because of the new regulation, there's lack of competition.
Then you hit the politics.
Exactly.
Then you hit the politics. Insurance, it's been costly because insurance companies have gotten out. Insurance companies, last I checked, are for-profit institutions.
Right.
One of the political pieces in all of this is insurance companies are getting out of certain markets. Great, that's the destination. Let's have Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. Let's have single-payer health care.
Well, and so that's where you have the big expense of the federal component of Medicaid now, because each state, if there are fewer and fewer options for people to be insured, and if it is too expensive, then there are going to be more people that are on the Medicaid option. Mm-hmm. So the states can't afford that increase in forced Medicaid spending, so then federal spending increases for that as well. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have, you're subsidizing both the insureds and the states who are covering those who get insurance through Medicaid. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of dollars flowing, lots and lots of levers.
Lots of levers, and in between is the healthcare industry itself, the insurance companies, not the providers and not the consumers, because on the one side you've got the consumers who are finding it too expensive to buy healthcare, but which they must have, and then you've got the providers, the docs, and the hospitals and all of the providers saying, look, we've been under financial pressure for a couple of decades here. So where's the missing, and this is also one of the big arguments that anybody who's watching this and wanting to stay up on the argument or stay up on the debate, one of the interesting things for you to try to track is the split of the dollar. We know that the consumer is paying X pennies of the dollar. We know that the government... Are you
talking about in premium?
Yes,
premium dollars?
Yes.
Okay.
We know that the government is subsidizing X pennies in the dollar. Mm-hmm. We know that the providers are being paid X pennies in the dollar, but there's a missing piece. What is the true impact of the insurance companies in this debate? Right. You know, how big is their piece? It's a well-muddied, well-kept secret as to what their impact is.
Insurance companies have two sets of books. They have one set of books that's their GAAP books, the books that any business has to have, their standard financials. That's what they show to auditors. That's what that's what you see on the financials. Then you also have, I think they call it the reserve accounting.
Yes.
So that's not GAAP accounting, because of course GAAP accounting you can do some funky things with. Reserve accounting is how much money do I have relative to my risk, and it's the same sort of a balance sheet construct, except it's how much money's in my coffers and what do I think or predict my risk is going to be that puts this money at risk, or puts it so that it might actually have to be used. Same as in healthcare, same as in the hurricane insurance, same as everything, but that's the reserve accounting, and that's not quite as easy to determine. There's a lot more actuarial assumptions that are in there, and they can muddy the waters kind of as much as they want to.
As much as they want to.
Because it lies, damn lies in statistics.
It's not transparent, and it's the insurance companies are traditionally the wealthiest in terms of actual cash reserves. They are, in historic terms, the biggest investors in the financial
Well, and that puts even more
industry.
pressure on it, because typically they're going to be investing. Typically insurance companies will have some sort of an investment mandate that is to generate what is needed from their reserves in order to keep them solvent should there be big risks that come through. However, they usually invest in things like real estate, bonds, treasury bonds, things like that, that right now yield not a whole heck of a lot. And so they've had to increase some of their premium just simply based on the fact that their assumptions were we're going to be generating 7% on our money, when really what we're generating at whatever their mandate is, unless they step outside their mandate, which some companies do, and that's where you see bad credit ratings. But if they stay within that mandate, then they have very low returns, just like anybody else that's investing in those less risky investments.
But we don't really know what their returns are. At the end of the day, we don't know what their returns are because they've been able to mask their returns by throwing into the reserve accounts excess profit. So at the end of the day, we don't know. We know that the reserves are enormous. We don't know to what extent the actuarial calculations behind the reserves are accurate, meaningful, needed, and so forth. So it's a game of cat and mouse. It's a very, very high stakes game, and it relates to the next huge chess piece on the board. These are rooks. These are not the queen and the king, but these are definitely rooks on the chess board, and that is tax reform. You can't have tax reform, which strip away the political fluff surrounding it. Tax reform means a reduction in taxes. It means not only making the tax code more sensible, but it means reducing tax revenue. That's really what it means. You can't reduce tax revenue unless you find a source of additional revenue. Otherwise, the deficit just balloons out of proportion. So where is that extra money going to come from? Well, one of the big places it was supposed to come from was savings from health care, with a new health care plan that was going to save $800 billion over the next 10 years. Since that's not clear, it's hard to put the first step forward to tax reform, because the tax reformers really wanted the wind at their back. They wanted some money in their pocket before they began the tax reform. Otherwise, nothing's going to get passed. Tax reform is extremely difficult. There's an opposing, every little piece of the tax code has two proponents, a for and an against, with lobbies in Washington. That complex tax code came into being for a reason. And you know, the avocado farmers have a lobby, and the people who want to strip the avocado farmers of their subsidy have a lobby.
And then we're also going to get into the, I think, isn't the trade is going to be involved in that as well, which of course is
huge. Yes,
so,
and that's so the trade, the
tariffs
and so forth are enormously difficult to project. The outcomes, the economic outcomes of changing the trade balance.
It's actually for you know, it's intellectually challenging and stimulating, and in a way, I mean, I'm nearly 40 years old, and I've never really had to look deep into how each of those interchange. You know, it's certainly on on a basic level and everything. But it's interesting, and I'm excited that I actually get to dig in a little bit more because so much of it is really bubbling up to learn from.
This is about going back to college and taking Economics 303.
Yeah.
This is big stuff. And then you reduce it all the way back down to Hilton Head. This is related or not related, but God knows it could be related. We have just gone through an 8-week spurt in sales in the real estate market in Hilton Head and Bluffton that has real velocity to it. I mean, the deals are coming through the door at a pace that we haven't seen for several years.
David needs a vacation.
So it's very interesting. Consumer optimism is up. So.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you very much for sticking with us for the second half of the show. We'll be back with more Money Matters. Actually, not next week. I guess it'll be the week after. But we will see you again shortly. Please send us your notes, thoughts, concerns, issues, everything. We love hearing from you. Until then, have a great week.